Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
I don't know what that means. Dude, just get here.
Hey, Cecil, where is everybody?
Noah, thank goodness. So Eli texted everyone early this week that in honor of your essay about weird measurements, we should all use them to get here.
Oh, that's actually pretty fun, right? Like, so they're using nautical miles and stuff to get here.
No, I wish. Last I heard, Tom was going to be here in a New York second, and Eli was a micro light year away.
Oh, what about Heath?
He's on vacation till a farmer's work is done. That's what he said.
Right. Got it. So we just hang out here and wait for him?
I guess so.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I mean, I know Eli's made a joke before that you and I have nothing to talk about, but that's not true.
Of course not.
Because we do.
Yeah, obviously. Jesus.
Yeah. So how is Season Liberty doing?
Going good. I made Dora Watt a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow. What is that?
Oh, it's a spicy Ethiopian stew. Yeah.
I couldn't eat that.
It's good.
No, I'm sure it is. It's just my stomach wouldn't.
Sure. And Cat's good?
Yep. Cats are good. Yours?
Yep. Yeah, they're good. Good. Yep.
You know, Tom and Eli probably aren't very far. I'm going to check the parking lot and see if they're there.
Yeah, I'm going to go look on the roof and then throw myself off it. Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where you choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Cecil, but I can't measure up, so I'll need my fellow co-hosts, a half pint, 2/5, and a barrel, Noah, Tom, and Eli.
Okay, to all the convenient drug-specific measurements, you go with a half pint. I'm taller than the other two guys you just introduced. Jesus.
I guess that's true.
That makes sense.
You'll always be a half pint to me, Noah.
Aw.
Cecil, 2/5 is about how much I'm going to need to drink to get through this topic. Are we sure there aren't any more new Cokes we can talk about?
Oh, yeah, the new Pepsis. There's a bunch of new Pepsis.
I didn't mean it.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
didn't.
All right, well, that's right. That's right. You didn't.
That's right. And Cecil, you didn't say barrel of laughs, but I heard of laughs. So thank you.
Non-patrons,
Thank you.
this week we were so hungry, and Heath drew the short straw. He was delicious with a port wine sauce. And if you'd like to prevent further diminishment of our crew, you can become a patron on a per episode basis. If you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Eli, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
We'll be talking about weird measurements.
Okay, well, since it's Noah, I'll fire up the buzz kilometer.
There you go.
Kilometer.
Nice.
Anyway, one of them
Why
already.
are we talking about weird measurements?
Because we're Americans, damn it. And that is our whole thing, Cecil.
Okay.
Weird fucking measurements. Look, at this point, the tabloidy sources have obviously gotten a hold of the Americans will use anything but the metric system meme. And they know that their, meteor passes nearby stories are going to get way more widely shared if they define them as the size of 23 million avocados in a pregnant lemur or whatever the fuck, right? So, but the meme came from a very genuine place. Before we even doubled down, Americans were already measuring astronomical bodies and fractional giraffes and pug hundreds and shit. And when you look at this obvious flaw in our national character, you're left with two options. One is to admit that ours is the dumbest of all the countries.
Yeah.
Or you can embrace this as an endearing quirk of our culture. This essay is my attempt to do the latter.
That's fair in height. Fair in height.
Okay. But when I try to do it with racism, Cecil cuts all my jokes. I don't understand the metric here, everybody.
Or my personal favorite measurement, the good enough once you're emotionally invested.
All right, there you go. We all benefit from them, like Americans. I should start out by pointing out that from an anthropological perspective, systems of measurement are actually a pretty modern thing. But like, it's just that they're so innate in our lives now. It's easy to imagine that the earliest humans had to have some form of them, but in truth, you don't really need systems of measurements in a hunter-gatherer type of lifestyle, right? Seriously, like in a lot of modern hunter-gatherer societies, they don't even have words for all the different numbers. Most of the time, 1, 2, and many are all you need to get by. It's not until you start relying pretty heavily on agriculture and you start having to like predict crop yields based on land usage that you really have to measure things to a degree more precise than tall or far, right? And it isn't until statewide societies emerge and start instituting taxes that those measurements needed to be standardized to any degree.
Plus, it makes exchanging body counts with a partner way less embarrassing, right?
Right? Yeah.
Just agree we're at many.
I don't know, Noah. I think how far away are the lions is a question that definitely benefits from some specificity.
Near can do the trick, I feel like, in that one.
Not many enough.
Yeah, right. Now, I find this whole history fascinating, and I'd love to talk more about how systems of measurement develop in the first place, but Heath isn't here, and he's the one I normally climb if Tom gets really mad.
Which makes sense because he is one Heath tall, and I'm only one Tom tall, so you're
right.
safe.
Exactly.
That's the math.
So that's as much as I'm going to say on that subject. Besides, the first weird system of measurement that I wanted to talk about is the one that we currently use in the U.S. when we're not measuring our cows and bicycles and our alligators and Ariana Grandes. And you don't have to segue too far out of the Stone Age to start talking about it.
I always get the Ariana Venti with my name wrong on the side. That's what I always...
So, of course, this nonsensical scheme is known as the imperial system, and it's about as justifiable and well-suited to modern needs as all the other aspects of imperialism. It's also often called British imperial or exchequer standards, mostly by Americans eager to blame it on somebody else. And as hard as it is to believe, looking at things now, it was originally implemented to simplify measurements. But despite our eagerness to forego credit, the modern system does come from U.S. trade as much as British. Specifically, the British Empire needed a standardized system that could be accepted in both British and American ports. And while it grew out of a system that dated back to the late 16th century, the system that we know today only took its modern form in the British Empire in 1826. That's important because that's more than 30 years after the metric system was invented.
Sorry, they're measuring stuff in tens and hundreds. No, I'm going to fix this with 12s and 5,280s. Thank you.
Yeah, look, sometimes the best systems are the most complex. Just weeds out the riffraff.
Yep.
And I will see myself out.
So let's start with length. For our international listeners and Eli, I'll remind everybody that there are 12 inches in a foot and 5,280 feet in a mile.
I'd be insulted, but I literally had to read ahead to write my last joke.
I figured you might
there, Noah.
But those are the length units that we generally use day to day. But they're nested in this delightful sea of insanity that we normally try not to talk about. See, the smallest unit of length in the imperial system is the twip.
That's now called an act, Noah. Changed recently. Yeah.
No, it's not. So a twip is 1/17,280th of a foot.
Shut up.
That's awkward.
It is. It's just under 18 micrometers. A mil or a thou is 1,000th of an inch. That's 1.44 twips. A barley corn is 1/3 of an inch. A hand is 4 inches. You get 3 of those together, you've got a foot. At 3 feet, you have a yard. A chain is 22 yards. A furlong is 10 chains. And a mile is 8 furlongs. Also, a league is 3 miles.
A hand is 4 inches. Man, Donald Trump is older than I thought. That influence goes back.
Now, obviously, this is batshit insanity. And I should be clear here that nobody ever sat out here and said, like, all right, but then what are we going to call 22 of the yards then, or anything like that, right? So most of these were efforts to take existing measurements that were independently developed and cram them onto the same line. The inch was originally about the breadth of the average man's thumb. The mile derived from a Roman measurement of around 1,000 paces. Measurements like hand and foot kind of betray their sources right up front in the name. But like until the standardization, a mile was understood to be about 5,000 feet. And that makes way more sense than 5,280. It's just that 5,280 was the closest you could get to that 5,000 and still make an even number of furlongs. But sometimes the existing systems were basically irreconcilable, or more often the people using them were unwilling to reconcile. So we also have shit like, completely separate maritime measurements where a fathom is 2.0266666 repeating yards. A cable is 100 fathoms rather, and a nautical mile is 10 cables. And in case this wasn't insane enough, there are also links, which are 66 100ths of a foot, and rods, which are 25 links.
25 links is also a Bears pregame in Italian sausage.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if you're not inviting friends.
Okay. Per
Right, yeah,
person.
right.
You're right. Per person.
No, yeah, right. No, you're trying to make sure that you have a heart attack before you have to watch them play.
Because I knew they were bad too.
So things get even dumber when we start talking about volume. And this is at least partially because we have separate measurements for liquid and dry storage sometimes, but sometimes it's just elective. So like liquidly speaking, the smallest measurement of volume is a gill, which is the equivalent of a quarter pint of dry storage.
What?
Half pint is the same liquid or dry as is a pint in a quart, but a gallon of liquid could be a half peck of dry storage, but it could also be a gallon. But above that, they split. Liquid goes on to be counted in gallons and eventually barrels or whatever, but 8 gallons liquid is a bushel in dry volume, and 8 of those is a quarter.
Why is this happening?
Not a quarter of anything, mind you, just a quarter. So 2 bushels is, whether we're ready to deal with it or not, a quarter.
Are you guys following this? I think Noah might be having a stroke. I think that's what's happening. Right?
Eli, if he's not, I'm calling dibs.
So here again, some folks refuse to adjust their system, and in this case, it was apothecaries. Getting precise measurements out of apothecaries really fucking matters. They were allowed to keep their volume measurements, which included 1 minim, which is 1/9600th of a pint, and a fluid scruple, which I fucking love. That's 20 minims, and then there's a fluid dram, which was 3 scruples. They also had a pint, 8 of which made a gallon, except theirs were ever so slightly different than the standard gallons.
Yeah, they spoke in a French accent.
Exactly, right, yeah. Now, by comparison, our units of mass are simple. Only by that comparison, though, if you compare them to anything other than our other measurement systems, they're fucking ridiculous. We start at 1 grain, which is a little under 65 milligrams or 1/7,000th of a pound. Then you've got a dram, which is completely irreconcilable. It's 27.34375 grains.
Sure. Yeah.
No fucking idea. The more familiar ounce is 16 drams. The pound is 16 ounces. The stone is 14 pounds, because you can fuck yourself. Then you have a quarter, not that quarter, a different quarter, which is 28 pounds. And that is 1/4 of a 100 weight, which is 112 pounds.
What?
Because you can go fuck yourself 112 times.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And then, of course, we have the ton, the silliest of all our measurements, in my opinion. The ton, which is 2,240 pounds, a measurement so stupid not even Americans will use it. So we use what's called a short ton, or 2,000 pounds, neither of which is to be confused with a ton with an E, or a metric ton, which is 2,204.62 pounds.
The stone probably started out as 10 pounds, but the people in charge kept raising it so they could keep the same weight on their license. Like, I'm going to always stay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Short ton is my favorite because it's so clearly someone who messed up the math and had to be like, it didn't come out to be 2,000. Well, I guess if you want 2,000, it would be a short ton.
All right, sure. But we haven't established the shit ton versus the metric shit
That's
ton.
true, yeah.
Or
Right.
the fuck ton, all of which are more than I care about any of these numbers.
I'll have to do a sequel essay. I agree, Tom. I should also mention the only remotely defensible imperial unit here, though I'm sure I'm going to stoke the ire of many a European just by suggesting that such a thing as a defensible imperial unit could exist. But when it comes to measuring temperature, I would argue that the average freezing and boiling points of water at sea level are at least as arbitrary as a question as 32 and 212 are as answers to those questions, right? So, like, the fact is that most of the time when the average person's talking about temperature, they're talking about air temperature. They're talking about how hot or cold it is outside. And the Fahrenheit scale, where 0 is super fucking cold and 100 is super fucking hot, is a pretty good intuitive system as far as that goes.
Yeah, I like that they're wrong about one, too. It keeps them humble, like Brexit.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. Of course, that being said, Celsius has plenty of advantages, not the least of which is that all the metric units are connected, so you can actually plug Celsius into equations a hell of a lot easier. It's also more useful for pretty much everything other than describing the outside temperature. And to be honest, I'd be willing to switch based on how much easier it is to spell alone. Still, it's the only imperial unit that isn't obviously inferior in every possible way, so I thought it was worth at least mentioning.
Well, if we don't count any of the shitty measurements, we're winning. So let's bask in our victory while we take a short break. $5,278. 5,279, 5,280.
Again? You have to be kidding me.
I don't know what to tell you, Remus. This is the third time.
Oh, is it, Romulus? Yeah, I hadn't noticed that we'd done this 3 fucking times already because it flew by, because the time just flew by.
If you want to count, I'll step.
No, I will not do this a 4th fucking time. I will lick the sponge at the communal toilet before I do this again.
Fine.
Jesus, there has to be something wrong here. Who did the original steps?
I don't know. I think it was Heathicus.
Heathicus? That dude is so tall. No wonder it came up so much shorter with us.
He is pretty tall.
And so I said to her, hey, I think going to the vomitorium with your sister is a bad idea.
Ooh, how did that go?
Not well.
Tomicus, Elias, did you guys finish your imperial measurements?
Mm-hmm, yep.
All done.
What? How? Let me see those. Guys, these are all just nonsense.
No, they're not. They're measurements.
They make no sense. They don't divide evenly. The names are weird. We're going to be the laughing stock of the fucking world here.
Don't sweat it. There's no way anyone is going to notice if we did this wrong.
How is that even remotely possible?
Because I've seen what the calendar guys are doing. They named the 10th month October.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Okay, no, I do feel a little better. Thanks.
When we left off, Noah was the first person in 340 episodes to talk about the actual topic in the first half of the show, which is 1/340th of a good podcast or a citation needed. What other weird measurements you got for us, Noah?
All right, so now that I filled plenty of the essay with admissions that Americans have no business calling anybody else's systems of measurement weird, I'm going to call other people's systems of measurement weird. So there are a couple of different ways that a measurement can be weird, right? It can make weird comparisons, it can measure weird things, or it can be derived in weird ways.
Noah's just bitter since Heath introduced the butthole to tip method of dick measuring.
He has so much more taint to work with. It's not fair.
He does.
All right. So once again, let's start with length.
Okay, or maybe we're funny and attentive and have other good qualities, Noah. We don't
All right, so there are a lot of measurements that are derived from certain people's heights. This is usually to make fun of short men, so I'm going to leave those out, except I want to mention the smoot, which is 5 feet 7 inches, or the height of Oliver R. Smoot in 1958.
No kidding.
Yeah, so the story is that when he was pledging for his fraternity at MIT, he was physically used as a ruler to measure the length of the Harvard Bridge, which turned out to be 364.4 smoots long.
Okay, bend about in half for the last
Jesus.
one.
Yeah,
Oliver.
right.
Somebody get these guys a 6-pack.
Now, apparently, for a lot of reasons, this measure is so beloved by computer nerds that it is an option on Google Earth and Google Calculator. You can directly translate to smoots. And it's so beloved by the people of Cambridge that when the walkway was rebuilt, the sections of the sidewalk were divided into smoots instead of the standard 6-foot divisions.
Correct.
The opposite of that is when 5'7" people say they're 6 foot, and that's called a Tinder.
Now, there are also a bunch of great measurements for very small lengths. The German Muggelsegel doesn't have an exact measurement that I know of, but the fact that it translates to housefly's scrotum gives you a pretty good idea of what kind of length we're talking about. I couldn't actually definitively track down the origin, but the same basic concept is covered by the term gnat's cock, or in Australia, bee's dick. And also, like, as in, like, just move that a gnat's cock to the left. That can apparently be further subdivided into the even smaller gnat's cock hair. While there is no officially recognized conversion here, as near as I can tell with a quick Google, a gnat's cock is about 0.6 millimeters long. I don't think they have pubes, though, so that one's just fucking nonsense. That's
okay, I gotta be honest. If there was any nation I was gonna trust to have standardized a housefly scrotum, it would be the Germans. So consider me disappointed. No illusions. Disappointed.
Now, so my favorite of the infinitesimal measurements, though, is the reverse end of the light year spectrum. While that one measures the distance that light travels in a year, for very, very short distances, you can use the beard second, defined as the average length of beard grows in 1 second. Now, in Eli and Cecil's case, that's the equivalent to like an inch and a half or whatever. But according to Google or the Google calculator, it's equivalent to 5 nanometers.
My body is like a Play-Doh fun factory for hair, man.
It's true. True. I hugged him at Tom's wedding, and when I pulled away, he looked like Cousin It. It was insane.
You can do that to him. Yeah.
Like a party popper.
A couple more length measurements worth noting. The first is the Mickey, which is a measure of quality for a computer mouse. A Mickey is the smallest resolvable unit of distance that your mouse can pick up, right? So like the typical mouse is like 500 Mickeys an inch, but you can get damn precise ones that go all the way up to 16,000 Mickeys an inch, which seems like the kind of weird-ass brag that would convince Eli to spend $14,000 on the Apple mouse or whatever.
Okay, first of all, it's called the iMouse, Noah, and you can hardly notice the battery pack you have to wear while you're using it. It's very... It's a backpack. It's very compact.
So as a Douglas Adams fan, talking to a lot of Douglas Adams fans, I also have to mention the Sheppy, which is the equivalent to 7/8 of a mile or 1.4 kilometers, and is defined as the closest distance at which sheep remain picturesque. That measurement comes from Douglas Adams and John Lloyd's book, The Meaning of Liff, a book where they created new meanings for meaningless British place names. And as silly as all the examples I'm giving here are, I should note that a measurement being weird doesn't mean it isn't practical. Like, for example, marine biologists often refer to lengths in wiffles, defined as the size of a standard wiffle ball, and that's a 3.5-inch spear. And the reason they use that is because you can just pop one down on or near coral or whatever, you take a photo, and you can accurately measure shit against it. Because it's a sphere, it's omnidirectional, and because wiffle balls are perforated, they aren't crushed by water pressure, so they maintain their size at pretty much any depth. They're also dirt fucking cheap, and the best alternative is a laser measurement that's very expensive, prone to break, and less accurate.
The next Titan sub guy busily cutting wiffles into the side of his submersible.
If he doesn't, the sea will. And the first guy actually tried to take a banana down for scale, but the sea monkeys kept eating them. It was a whole thing.
Now, up until now, we haven't talked about measurements of time. And if Tom was off, I could probably do a whole essay on the weird-ass 60-based or sexagesimal system that we inherited for the Babylonians for our basic time units. Not while you're here, I promise.
Then I wouldn't come back.
But setting that aside, there are definitely a few weird time units that deserve a spot in this episode. Like, for example, the Friedman, a period of about 6 months, which got its name after the billionth time that columnist and Bush war enthusiast Thomas Friedman said that the picture in Iraq would be clear in about 6 months.
Yeah, great measurement. Mission accomplished.
Yep, yeah, exactly. There is also, of course, the familiar New York second, which is officially defined as the space between the light turning green and the New Yorker behind you honking at you to go. Now, this has been called the shortest measurable length of time, but in my experience, That's a bunch of fucking bullshit. The light's been green. You just didn't notice until I honked. You were playing fucking Sudoku on your phone like Eli, and you needed to be impolitely reminded to fucking go.
The New York second is actually how someone with taste ranks pizza, too.
You know what? I prefer Detroit style too, Cecil. So I'm also a big fan of the Scaramucci or the mooch as a unit of time measure. It's either 10 or 11 days, depending on who you ask. This one, of course, got its name from the tenure of Trump White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci, who spent his first day on the job calling a reporter and bitching about all the people in the White House calling reporters and bitching.
Hey, look, still the absolute best communications director we have ever had. It was like listening to a mobster's bratty kid yelling at the neighbors. I fucking loved it.
There are also a lot of weird units that are crafted by dialing back astronomical measures or combining huge and microscopic units to create useful ones. Like, for example, a microcentury, 1/1000th of a century, or 52 minutes, 35.7 seconds. Apparently, legendary mathematician John Van Neumann coined that term to denote the longest acceptable length for a lecture. In computing, apparently this has been further reduced to the nanocentury, which is a billionth of a century, or 3.156 seconds.
Yeah, or a TikTok. That's a TikTok. Yeah.
And while it doesn't come with a specific time, I also wanted to mention the unit, the oh no second, which Wikipedia defines as, quote, the second after one makes a terrible mistake, such as deleting the wrong file or sending a text message to the wrong person, where the person in question can do nothing but say, oh no, end quote.
Yeah, over at Puzzle on a Thunderstorm, we call that the Noah got to the listener feedback before Tim did second.
We do go at that. And shifting away from time units and back to useful ones, I also want to mention my favorite measure of radioactivity, which is the banana equivalent dose, or the amount of radiation one gets from eating one banana. Now, this is a real measurement, but given the way that people tend to react to any hint of radioactivity with panic, I think it's an important one to emphasize just how little exposure we're talking about when we're talking about low-risk radiation. That being said, the moment somebody starts talking in kilobananas or whatever, I will withdraw my support for this unit.
Oh, man, I really wish that was the standard for radioactivity, so that in Chernobyl, they had to be 84 million bananas with a straight face, They really sell it.
Yeah, Eli, I would watch the hell out of a tense 80s nuclear scare movie with those units.
Sir, we're approaching the red zone.
Roger that. Sanders, give me a reading.
We're at 84 million bananas, sir, and climbing.
That's too many bananas, sir. You've got to get out of there.
And let the Ruskies win? Not gonna happen, Private. I'll take them. I'll take all the bananas. I'll take every last banana the damn commies can throw at me, and I'll take some.
Sir? He's gone.
Brave, crazy bastard. He was always bananas.
Jesus Christ.
Can I boo a sketch I was in? I boo a sketch I'm in. I don't want to boop out of it yet.
I wasn't in it.
Boo
I can boo it for you.
Thank you. When we get out of here.
Boo. Boo.
All right, so a couple more fun ones here. You have the milliblatt as a measure of odor. In Stephen Levy's influential book Hackers, he described computer pioneer and hacker godfather Richard Greenblatt as being less than consistent in his habits of personal hygiene, so much so that his coworkers coined the term blatt as a measure of insufferable body odor. Though they generally spoke in milliblatts, as an entire blatt was so powerful as to be, in Levy's words, quote, just about inconceivable, end quote.
Yeah, there's 4 blatts in a LARP, Noah. I'll have you know.
In space exploration, there's a similar measure for nausea called the Garn. It's named after astronaut Jake Garn, who spent so much of his astronaut time vomiting that they all but named vomiting after him, which is an awesome legacy. He was also a Republican senator from Utah for a long time, so I feel like there were plenty of reasons to name your measure of vomit after him, right?
Yeah, he's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I vomiting too much during the G-force testing, Susan? Why don't you strap into the machine, you nerd? Huh? Can we get in here? No, you want to do some more math? Okay.
Well, one small step for man, one hurled lunch for mankind.
I'm also a big fan of a unit created by Swedish video game magazine Sega Force back in 1994 This was a measure of irritation expressed in GKB, or grams nakabrod. Apparently, this meant equivalent to X grams of breadcrumbs per square centimeter of the bed you just laid down in.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. So, like, the notoriously buggy Sega game T2, the movie, had an irritation level of 8.6 GKB. And while I'm not a big fan of objectifying beauty, I feel like I should at least mention the Helen here. This one is, of course, named after Helen of Troy, whose legendary beauty is described in the Iliad as the face that launched 1,000 ships. Thus, a Helen would be a face beautiful enough to launch one ship, right? So, now, this can also be extended to the negative end of the spectrum, where a negative Helen would be a face with the power to beach one ship.
Not to be confused with the Brittany, which is a face beautiful enough to get you a conservatorship.
There are actually 3 different measurements that I'm aware of for coolness. There's the Mega Fonzie, which was invented by Professor Farnsworth in an episode of Futurama, and of course refers to the amount of coolness 1 million times greater than the inherent coolness of Fonzie from Happy Days. Very high. There's also the Wheaton. That's a measure of online influence compared to Will Wheaton's Twitter followers, although that seems antiquated now, even by American standards. My favorite, though, is the Warhol, which is derived from Warhol's famous dictum that everyone is going to get their 15 minutes of fame. So, like, a kilo Warhol would be 15,000 minutes of fame, or like a 10-day wonder kind of person. And then, like, a mega Warhol would be 15 million minutes of fame, like 30 years of worth of career there.
1 second, I'm Googling how long my Skittles post stayed viral. I want to see what what do I get here?
Oh, and related, Noah, what's the unit for how long Eli can cry in a single jag? What's that?
Now, we've also got the unit that governs Eli's life. This is the micromort. That's a measure of how dangerous shit is, right? So mort here refers to mortality. So a micromort is 1 in a million chance of dying, right? So, like, your baseline, at least as an American, is 22 micromorts just for waking up in the morning. There is a 22 in a million chance that any American will die on any given day. It's obviously it's higher if you're in Chicago, but then you add like 0.7 micromorts if you go skiing that day, or 5 micromorts if you go scuba diving. You add a micromort every time you travel 230 miles by car, 1,000 miles by airplane, or 6 fucking miles on a motorcycle.
Jesus.
Or 1 block in a car with Eli driving.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You get the idea.
I just wish my micromort counter wouldn't go up every time I take a bite during dinner. That feels targeted to me. It's just like,
And one of the more familiar ones that I just can't leave out of this discussion because it's so fucking dumb, and this is the Scoville scale, which measures the heat of chili peppers. This unit was developed by American pharmacist Wilbur Scoville and was derived by basically eating a pepper and then writing down how much he regretted it. Right? Like, seriously, like, it's called the Scoville organoleptic test or whatever to make it sound scientific. But other than ask a bunch of people and average out their answers, there's no objectivity to this test at all, which makes it a really fucking weird thing that it's the generally accepted measurement for pepper pungency, even when actual scientific measures of things like capsaicin content exist and would objectively tell you the same fucking thing.
yeah, it's the electoral college of spiciness, if you will.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right, Eli? You know a system is objectively bad when suddenly Pennsylvania matters.
But I saved my favorite for last. Entomologist Justin O. Schmidt used a similar approach to Scoville and wanted a system of measurement named after him way too bad for it to be healthy. So he invented the Schmidt Sting Pain Index, which is a classification of the pain level from various insect stings. And yes, he derived these measures subjectively, as in, he just let shit sting him, and then he went, wow, fuck, that hurts like at a 3.6.
Jeez.
Yeah, so this scale ranges from a type 1, which includes stuff like the average bee or fire ant, all the way up to type 4.
Okay, everybody, just be a pervert, okay? Don't write a paper. Just be a pervert. Who likes that?
Eli, maybe he just wants some of that sweet PhD.
So now when Schmidt first published his work, only the bullet ant was classified as type 4. Schmidt described their sting as, quote, pure, intense, brilliant pain, like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch nail embedded in your heel, end quote.
Jesus,
weird that he
fuck.
has a measurement of how long the nail would be, right? Like
Sure,
it would hurt
yeah.
differently at 2 inches. Anyway, over the years he spent revising it, he added 3 more offenders to that type 4 list, including the tarantula hawk, which is a type of wasp despite the name, and the warrior wasp. He described the last one's sting as, quote, torture. You are chained in the flow of an active volcano. Adding the question on everyone's mind, quote, why did I start this list? For reasons that I don't think I need to explain, the warrior wasp would be the last sting that was added to his scale. For his work, Schmidt was awarded an Ig Nobel Prize.
If you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Sometimes just being forgotten is fine, Justin. Jesus.
Just sometimes we all just go, man.
Ready for the quiz?
That I am.
All right, no.
Or sorry, let's see if I measure up. That's much better.
There you go.
All right, Noah. It's obvious by virtue of doing this episode that we all deserve our own unit of measurement. Which of the following should be put into use first? A, the illusions, or how dependent your company is on the survival of one member. B, the Cecil, any given podcast's unemployment rate.
Hey.
C, the Curry, a measurement of dehydration while on a road bike.
Okay.
Or D, the Enright, a measurement of how many weeks a host can miss of a podcast until they're technically a special guest.
All right, well, I will go with the guy who's not here to defend himself. The answer is D, the Enright.
That is correct.
All right, Noah, you left out an important unit of measure for our American political system. What one was it? $130,000 or one stormy night. B, 150 feet away from an elementary school or a Gates. C, when you work 30 years past your retirement age or a Congress. Or D, a finger, which is how long Lauren Boebert spends in the theater.
All right, well, it can't be D because I think it was more than a finger. Let's be fair. Here. I think it is secret answer E, answers A through C.
Correct. You are correct.
All right, finally, Noah. Measuring stuff is hard work. A, just give me a minute. B, maybe if you stop looking. C, when are you measuring it wrong? Or D, I'm also a really good cook.
I think the answer is E. It's a good size, and that's all that matters.
Sure, thank you.
All right, Noah, you're the winner.
You
I
must
thought
be
it was a good idea
emotionally
for you
invested.
All right, well, so based on our newfound camaraderie, I think that the next week's essayist should be Tom.
All right. Well, for Tom, Noah, and Eli, I'm Cecil. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, watch and listen to all our other shows. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or you can leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. If you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
And so he says to me, don't worry about it. We'll fix the days with a leap year.
The fuck is a leap year?
Well, that's what I said, Tomicus.
Man, some people do not have their head in the game.
Okay, Mr. Short Ton.
You are. The math is. We don't have calculators.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started, risk-free, at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.